Hey everyone, I'm Ian Norman,
And I'm Cody Smith.
and we're from the Photon Collective, and we've been using the Atomos Shogun for about a month now, and we wanted to share some of our thoughts with you. The Atomos Shogun is a dedicated video monitor and recorder capable of recording 4K ultra-high definition video via HDMI from cameras like the Sony a7S, the Panasonic GH4, and the Samsung NX1. We were fortunate enough to use the Atomos Shogun before the launch of the Photon Collective to film a short promotional teaser. Cody and I were definitely excited to see what we could make with the Shogun.
So I was excited about a full 1920 by 1080 touchscreen, obviously 4K recording out of a tiny little camera that, is full frame, like, beating the GH4 on that front, in my opinion.
The Shogun is the product that's needed for the a7S in order to record to 4K. And the reason that that's significant is that the a7S is currently the only camera on the market that can output 4K across a full frame sensor. Most of the footage here was shot using Sony's S-Log2 flat picture profile and then graded with a simple lookup table in either Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro. Most of the footage was saved to the relatively lightweight Apple ProRes 422 codec, which is really friendly for editing and allowed us to record a couple of hours of footage on our 480GB solid-state drive. The Shogun offers a lot more than just the ability to record 4K. It has a wide variety of video assist features like focus peaking, zebra stripes, vector scope, and waveform. Most of these functions worked flawlessly, but we did find that focus peaking was a little bit too finely drawn to be super helpful. That said, the full HD 7-inch touchscreen on the Shogun was really detailed and made focus pulling rather easy, even without the use of the focus peaking aid. Combined with a very high quality sensor on the Sony a7S, the ProRes files straight out of the camera looked really good, even with a relatively flat S-Log2 gamma profile.
Just being able to shoot ProRes from a camera like this, and as well like Cinema DNG, which hasn't come out yet, so it's just added massive amounts of functionality to this small mirrorless camera. So, everybody wants to shoot 4K now.
Yeah.
And so do I. I want that kind of power, I want that kind of resolution. So that's what we wanted to test out, how good this picture looked. Big.
We traveled with the Shogun and a couple of Sony a7Ss to various locations across California for our shoot. We shot in the sandy desert of the Owens Valley, the serene shores of Lake Tahoe, and the sunny beaches of Malibu. We wanted to capture one of the things that we love most about photography. It's an excuse to be in beautiful places. Capturing in 4K really did feel like we were doing justice to just how beautiful some of these places were. We mostly shot a combination of shoulder-mounted or slider footage on one of two Sony a7Ss and a variety of lenses like an ultra-wide 16mm to an adapted 80mm medium format lens. We also tended to shoot about 2 stops over in order to keep a low noise floor when shooting with the a7S's 3200 base ISO while shooting S-Log. The Shogun zebra stripe overlay made it really easy to optimize our exposure without blowing out the highlights, and we found that it matched really well with the a7S's zebra overlay. Overall, the Shogun is very simple to operate, but we did find a few of the graphical buttons on the Shogun to feel a little bit small. But once we had everything set up, we rarely needed to touch the Shogun during shooting. The Shogun's glossy display did create a lot of glare and bright sunlight, so at times we needed to resort to shading the screen with Cody's hat. We think that if we were going to shoot with it again in the future, we'd probably want to invest in some kind of monitor hood to cut down on the glare. Those considering buying the Shogun should definitely take into account the extra peripherals that they'll need to get the most out of the experience. At a minimum, it requires the purchase of an HDMI cable compatible with your camera, some way to mount it to your camera, and a solid-state drive. Luckily, the Shogun can use pretty much any 2.5 SSD, which makes storage really affordable, especially when compared to the proprietary drives that the competing Convergent Design Odyssey 7Q requires. While the Shogun is supplied with a battery, the single 2600 mAh battery that's included is only good enough for about 45 minutes of monitoring and shooting in 4K. If you really want to shoot in the field for longer, extra batteries or some sort of additional power is needed. We ended up outfitting the Shogun with an external 9-volt lithium-ion battery pack. This extra power allowed us to shoot for about 5 hours without needing to recharge. Ultimately, the a7S is a relatively small camera, but attaching the Shogun to it makes it no longer a truly compact setup. If you're looking for some extra resolution in your video, but you don't want a bigger camera rig, a smaller format camera that can shoot more compressed 4K internally might be a better fit if portability is a priority.
So who should be interested in the Shogun? Anybody who wants to get the most and best possible footage out of this little camera, the a7S, even like a GH4 or something like that. It's monumentally better than viewing your picture on the tiny, 3-inch screen on the back of the a7S. You have this big 7-inch, it's nearly an iPad sized monitor in front of your face. Or it's on a tripod or it's on a shoulder mount. It's really nice. It's really great to be able to view the picture, because the picture the a7S puts out is so beautiful, and you actually have a very great representation of what that picture is in front of your face when you're shooting. It instills confidence in you when you're shooting. And you're not super worried about focus because everything's squeezed down into this tiny little form factor. So, it's $2,000. So you have to want to shoot 4K. You have to be really committed to it. It's not a thing you just buy on a whim.
Yeah, I feel like, it might seem, when you read about it online, and especially when the a7S was first announced, it's like, oh, first full frame 4K camera. But, it's not like you're just picking up a new device and can suddenly shoot 4K. There's a lot that has to go into setting up the Shogun. We're talking about like a lot of equipment, like the setup that we're recording with right now on the Shogun. I'm looking at it and it's not like the most compact setup. Even though we're talking about a compact camera, this is like definitely an enthusiast only or like even professional oriented rig. It's not just a matter of buying this $2,000 accessory and suddenly getting 4K. There's a lot more that has to go into it. I would say that, with our rig and with all of our cables plus the a7S, you're looking at about like a $6,500 setup for like a nice shoulder rig and the camera and the Shogun. So it's definitely a big investment.
You're not going to walk around town with this big 7-inch monitor and shoot video of your friends.
Right.
You might, but why would you? It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. It's for planned shoots, planned scheduled shoots with, somewhat of a schedule. We kind of played by ear when we were playing around with it, obviously, but it sort of lets you realize that this thing, it sort of like needs some extra attention. It needs some extra preparation to really get the shot right with it. I think we really enjoyed using the Atomos Shogun. It's actually very easy to use, and the footage from it and the a7S really speaks for itself. We've uploaded a few samples of the raw 4K ProRes footage from the Shogun on photoncollective.com, so you guys can see what it's like to process and grade the footage from the Shogun on your own computers. We'd like to give a huge thanks to the team at B&H for loaning us the Shogun for this review. They have the absolute best online store for photography and video equipment, and this review wouldn't have been possible without them. This is the very first of many future video reviews from the Photon Collective, so thanks for being one of our first supporters. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe and check out the full written review of the Atomos Shogun, as well as all of our tutorials, gear reviews, and inspiration on photoncollective.com. See you later.